Hi, Marty, Manuel here again. So glad you're able to join us for our leadership sessions. I want to talk today briefly about two things that I've found to be very, very important character traits that I look for in other leaders, and I'm sure people look for in me as a leader. And they are credibility and anointing or gifting. And these two things I find to be not spoken about so broadly and openly as leadership character traits, but I know for myself, I look at these things very carefully when I'm looking at people that I want to follow, that I want to listen to and I want to watch. I make sure that, yes, they might have gifting and anointing, but they also have credibility, because one can outweigh the other. And if we're out of balance in these two areas as leaders, I believe we can trip ourselves up a little bit. And what I mean by that is we can look on YouTube and see sensations, overnight sensations in young movie stars or music stars because of their anointing, their gifting. They put something up on YouTube and it's just a blast all around the world. Doesn't mean they've got any credibility or that they've got good character or wisdom or really know anything about, but they've got anointing. And so the world just jumps on that and it's released in that. But as Christian leaders and business leaders and leaders in society, we want to have credibility so that we don't just run on our gifting and what we can say on the platform or at the right time, but that our lives display credibility that people can look at and see that we actually live what we believe. We have good relationships. We have good understanding. We're learning. We're training. We're also submitted to people. We're in right relationship with those around us. And these things build credibility. And you can see over times, particularly the last 100 years, you can see various revival movements and healing movements in the charismatic church. We can see areas where anointing way outweighed the credibility. And so when credibility is down and anointing is up, we need to be careful. We need to make sure that we're growing in this area so that this is not just what we're running on. Because we can see that when things fail, sometimes we're lacking in this. It's not normally because we're lacking in this. And so I want to encourage us today to be learning and growing in credibility and anointing, because I believe when we go after these things both, then we actually see an increase in the presence of God and we see an increase in the wisdom of God. And when those two things run together, I believe we have greater influence, greater impact. I know for my own life in business that my credibility came over time. Once I started winning more and more jobs and taking on more and more staff, I've got credibility because I was able to do that. And it's the same with churches. We want to have credible ministries with signs and wonders and with healings and with salvations and great things going with it. The anointing often releases that, but credibility will sustain that. And we can see that as leaders, we want to be those who sustain this stuff. We don't just claim things. And I think charismatic, prophetic churches, as we are one of those, I would put us in that category. We need to be careful that we're building this as well as this, because just prophetic words in and of themselves need to be credible. They need to be accountable. They need to be measurable so that we can actually justify to the world God's goodness and his accuracy and the fact that he is in control. And not just run on anointing and claim all sorts of things, but back it up with credibility, robust credibility, so that we can prove our God and his power and his presence. And I believe that these two things, as we grow in them as leaders and we portray them to other people, we actually become more powerful in both areas, but as witnesses for Jesus. Thanks for watching. I hope that's been an encouragement for you today. Have a great week.